Welcome to Unit 1 of AP Psychology, the biological bases of behavior. This is Topic 1.1, the interaction of heredity and environment. This is where the whole science begins, with one deceptively simple question. Are we shaped by our genes or by our experiences? By the end of this video, you'll know the answer the exam wants, the evolutionary perspective behind it, and the clever study psychologists use to tell nature and nurture apart. Let's dive in. Here's the plan. First, we'll define nature and nurture and nail the single most important idea in this topic, that they interact. Then the evolutionary perspective, how natural selection shaped human behavior. We'll pause on an important ethical warning about how these ideas have been misused. Next, the three research methods the exam loves: twin, family, and adoption studies. And finally, heritability, along with the classic trap that costs students easy points. 5 things. Let's take them one at a time. For centuries, philosophers and scientists argued over a single question. Are we born the way we are, or made the way we are? Is behavior the product of our biology, our nature, or our experiences, our nurture? Hold on to this, because it's the most important test-taking insight in the entire topic. Modern psychology does not pick a side. The exam will never reward "it's all genetics" or "it's all environment." It rewards the interaction. Let's define both halves, then put them together. First, nature, also called heredity. Heredity is the genetic or predisposed characteristics you're born with that influence your physical, behavioral, and mental traits. Think of the temperament a baby shows in its very first weeks, or a predisposition toward a certain trait that seems to run in a family. But notice the careful wording. You inherit tendencies and ranges, not fixed destinies. Genes open doors. They rarely force you through them. Keep that in mind. It becomes the key to the whole topic. The other half is nurture, your environment. Environment means all the external factors you experience: your family interactions, your education, your culture, your relationships, every life experience that shapes you. And here's the crucial part that sets up the big idea. Your environment helps decide which of your inherited tendencies actually show up and how strongly. A child born with a shy temperament, raised in a warm, encouraging home, may grow bold. The same child in a harsh environment may grow more withdrawn. Same genes, different outcomes. So here's the answer psychology gives, and the single idea that unlocks this topic. Nature and nurture interact. Neither one acts alone. Your genes set a range of possibilities, and your environment determines where inside that range you actually land. Height is the easy analogy. Genes set your potential range, but nutrition decides where you fall within it. The same is true for intelligence, personality, and even psychological disorders. Whenever a question asks why someone behaves a certain way, your answer should almost always include both biology and experience, working together. Time for your first memory trick. To lock in the interaction, remember this line: nature deals the cards, nurture plays the hand. Your genes deal you a hand. That's your genetic potential, and you can't swap the cards. But how that hand gets played, brilliantly, poorly, or somewhere in between, depends on your environment. The same hand can be played 100 different ways. Say it once more. Nature deals the cards, nurture plays the hand. If you remember nothing else from this topic, remember that. Here's a gift that saves you hours of studying. The College Board explicitly states that detailed genetics is beyond the scope of this exam. You do not need genotype and phenotype. You do not need DNA and chromosomes, and you do not need dominant and recessive gene expression. This is a psychology course, not a biology course. What they test is the interaction of heredity and environment, and the research methods behind it. The concepts, not the molecular machinery. So if your textbook dives into Punnett squares, you can safely skim past it. Study smart. What do these evolved behaviors look like? Consider our quick, almost automatic fear of snakes, spiders, and heights. Our ancestors who avoided those dangers survived to have children. Or our strong preference for fatty and sweet foods. Those were precious, scarce calories in the ancestral world. Or our deep need to belong and our fear of social rejection. Because for early humans, being cast out of the group could be a death sentence. Here's a subtle point the exam likes. Some of these ancient adaptations misfire today. Our craving for sugar made sense when food was scarce. In a world of endless snacks, it works against us. Now an ethical warning. The College Board deliberately includes, so expect it. Throughout history, some people twisted evolutionary ideas to harmful ends. Eugenics was the attempt to improve the human population by controlling who was allowed to reproduce, leading to forced sterilizations and outright discrimination. Social Darwinism misused the phrase survival of the fittest to justify inequality and oppression. Here is the distinction the exam wants you to draw clearly. The evolutionary perspective is a scientific approach that explains where behavior comes from. It does not and cannot justify discrimination. Science describes, it does not excuse. Here's a real problem. If you wanted to prove how much of a trait comes from genes versus environment, you'd need to control both. But psychologists obviously can't assign genes to people or randomly place children into different families. It would be unethical and impossible. So they do the next best thing. They use natural comparisons, groups of people who already differ in how genetically related they are. 3 of these natural experiments dominate the exam: twin studies, family studies, and adoption studies. Let's take them in turn. Method 1. Twin studies. Identical twins, called monozygotic, come from a single fertilized egg that splits, so they share essentially 100% of their genes. Fraternal twins, called dizygotic, come from 2 separate eggs and share about 50%, no more than ordinary siblings. Now, the logic. If identical twins are more similar on a trait than fraternal twins are, that extra similarity points to genetic influence. And the most powerful version studies identical twins raised apart. When they still turn out strikingly similar, that's strong evidence for genes. But they're never perfectly identical, which reminds us environment always still matters. Methods 2 and 3. Family studies ask whether a trait runs in biological families. Since closer relatives share more genes, greater similarity among them hints at heredity, though there's a catch you should name on an exam. Families also share environments, so it's hard to fully separate the two. Adoption studies are cleverer. They compare adopted children to 2 sets of parents at once. When adopted children resemble their biological parents on a trait, that points to genes. When they resemble their adoptive parents, often in values, attitudes, and faith, that points to environment. Adoption studies let researchers see both forces pulling at once. 2 quick memory tricks. For the 3 research methods, just remember the letters TFA: twins, family, adoption. And for the twins themselves, students constantly mix these up. Anchor on this. MZ equals mono equals 1 egg equals identical. Mono means 1. 1 egg splitting gives you 1 shared genome, so monozygotic twins are the identical ones. That means DZ, di, meaning 2 eggs, are the fraternal twins. Mono, 1, identical. Lock it in, and you'll never flip them on the exam. Now the topic's trickiest term: heritability. Heritability is the proportion of variation in a trait, within a group, that is due to genetic differences. Read that carefully, because the exam sets 3 traps. Trap 1, heritability describes variation across a whole group. It never tells you how genetic any single person is. Trap 2, a high heritability does not mean a trait is locked in or unchangeable. Trap 3, heritability within a group says nothing about differences between groups. The classic example: intelligence has moderate to high heritability, and yet education and environment still influence it enormously. Here's a gift that saves you hours of studying. The College Board explicitly states that detailed genetics is beyond the scope of this exam. You do not need genotype and phenotype. You do not need DNA and chromosomes, and you do not need dominant and recessive gene expression. This is a psychology course, not a biology course. What they test is the interaction of heredity and environment, and the research methods behind it. The concepts, not the molecular machinery. So if your textbook dives into Punnett squares, you can safely skim past it. Study smart. Let's talk strategy. On multiple choice, expect to apply the nature-nurture interaction to a short scenario, to recognize the evolutionary perspective in a description, or to match a described study to the right method: twin, family, or adoption. On the free response section, follow one rule. For any trait you're asked about, mention both genetic and environmental factors, and use the words interaction and heritability. Graders reward them. And if you ever blank, fall back on this golden sentence: heredity and environment interact. Twin and adoption studies show both contribute substantially, with neither alone determining the outcome. Let's lock in topic 1.1 in 60 seconds. Nature, your genes, and nurture, your environment, interact. Neither works alone. Nature deals the cards, nurture plays the hand. The evolutionary perspective explains our nature through natural selection, favoring traits that boosted survival and reproduction. But that perspective explains behavior. It never justifies discrimination, which is where eugenics went wrong. Psychologists separate genes from environment using 3 methods: twin studies, comparing identical and fraternal twins, family studies, and adoption studies. Heritability is the genetic share of a trait's variation within a group, not a fixed destiny, and not a statement about individuals. And you can skip the molecular genetics entirely. That's the whole topic. That's topic 1.1, the foundation the entire course is built on. Next up in Unit 1, we go inside the body's communication network with topic 1.2, the nervous system. How billions of neurons carry every thought, feeling, and action you'll ever have. Subscribe and turn on notifications so the topics reach you in order. And if this helped, save it for your exam review. Great work today. I'll see you in the next one.